If there is such a thing as the mind in terms of compromise of the mind for women, okay, what is mental compromise? Give me an illustration.
Well, I believe that mental compromise is where the compromise starts. It's those thoughts that we allow into our brain that we don't just think on them and move on. We obsess over them. We just ruminate over them over and over. We begin to build fantasies around them. And you don't pour motor oil into a sponge and expect to wring out drinking water. You know, whatever you pour into a sponge, that's what's going to come out. And the same thing is true with our thought life. If we are reading the inappropriate romance novels and looking at the internet chat rooms and just letting the inappropriate music and movies and things like that come into our mind, that's the kinds of things that are going to come out in our lives.
What's emotional compromise?
Emotional compromise is where you are longing to connect. It's almost like a Velcro strip where you're just looking to emotionally attach to someone. It's kind of like two ticks and no dog, where they just, two people just join up and just kind of suck the life out of each other emotionally. And that's a very dangerous kind of connection, because there's love addiction just as much as there is sex addiction. Sometimes it's that codependency that causes women to get in relationships that they don't feel as if they can break free of, even when they recognize this is a dysfunctional relationship.
You were a Christian, and yet you carried some of your habits over into your marriage. Talk about spiritual compromise.
I believe spiritual compromise happens when you start looking to a man to do something for you that only God can do. When you start spelling love M-E-N instead of G-O-D. And over, all of my teenage years, I was the president of my youth group, and my mother drugged me to church every Sunday and all of that, this sort of thing. And so on the outside to everyone, I looked like the model Christian girl, honor roll, honor society, all of that kind of stuff. But on the inside, I just had this overwhelming longing for a boyfriend. I just obsessed over it night and day and just didn't feel as if I was really a woman unless I had a boyfriend. Well, having a boyfriend makes you a woman about like having a flower in your hand and standing in a garage makes you a Volkswagen Beetle. That doesn't equate. And so I had to recognize that what I was longing so desperately for wasn't something that another human being could fulfill. That's something that only God could fulfill. But I was looking at God as this distant disciplinarian, not as the lover of my soul. That was just not a concept that I had learned growing up in the church.
All right, you said that when you were 12, you had every intention of being married as a virgin, okay? By the time you were 15, you said that's absolutely impossible. Talk about why women compromise with their body.
Well, oftentimes it starts out the way that it started out with me. It starts out with abuse. It starts out with men teaching you inappropriate ways of getting the attention and the affection that you crave. And oftentimes when you flirt yourself into those corners looking for attention, you wind up giving sex to get love. And what we fail to understand is that when we start giving sex in order to get that love, our value in our own minds come down a notch, and we begin to do things that we never thought that we would do. And then we begin to feel as if, well, gee, my virginity's already been stolen from me from abuse, so I may as well just keep going. We don't really ever learn to draw that line in the sand and start living the life that we always dreamed about living growing up.